we go through life and we unconsciously are giving meaning to things that are happening around us. That, something happens, something scares us. We create a protective wall, we create protective mechanism, we create a safety net or some sort where we start basically giving certain meaning to certain things in order to feel safe, in order to feel protected.
There's a story, there's a prediction for safety, right? So it's like, if I speak, I'll be judged, or I won't be okay if this happens. And so if we repeat that loop enough times, then it kind of crystallizes. Like I said, it hardens into the personality. Like, this is how I am. And then about the personality, like, this is how life is.
Ego is like a mirror. And if you're too close, you only see you. But if you stand back, you see more, and you see the world, and you see everything. But if you get too close to it, then you're.
There's a huge difference between assigning meaning in a state of protecting yourself from something, so from state of fear in some sense, and or from place of being inspired by something, from place of love.
Your life is the way it is now, based off of actions or inactions that you chose to take or not take. Being in full responsibility means that owning up to all the things that you've done. And if that means that you have to go clean up some stuff with some people that you've harmed in some way, then that's what I would invite your audience into.
Life isn't a scavenger hunt where we're going to get more points when we run really fast, and the more we can collect things and have them. Here, I win a prize. No, it's slow, and just letting everything be and realize you can sit still and everything can happen while you're sitting still.
Hello, curious souls and beautiful minds. Welcome back to Awaken Aware podcast. In today's session, Tammy and I are going to interview our dear friend Matthew Sean, and we're going to talk about the mental body that houses our thoughts, our intellect, our logic, obviously our mind, conscious, subconscious, and we'll also touch on the importance of understanding how words shape our reality, how important language is, the meaning that we give to our experiences. Also, obviously, what role does the subconscious and conscious mind play in our life, and how beliefs affect our being. And without any further ado, let's get started and help me welcome Tammy and Matthew Sean. Welcome back, Matthew Sean. Tammy, thank you for joining me again. And today we're going to talk about the mental body and its functions and the function of the mind, what we can do with the mind, what mind does with us sometimes without us knowing, and looking into how we use language and how language uses us. And I want to also talk about meaning. So let's jump into the conversations. So in your practice, Matthew Sean, when you deal with your clients, how much of your attention goes to paying attention to the meaning that they put into the words that they're saying? So obviously being careful with listening to what they're saying, how they're saying, and then the meaning that they seem to be given, assigning.
Great question. Thank you, Mark. And thank you for having me back on the podcast. Yeah, it was great. And as I believe we discussed last time, there's like these 4 different types of awareness, and one of them is just mainly dealing with meaning making. And so it's very important, because I find that a lot of my clients, or a lot of everybody's everything, is that their brains are they're defining things and they're defending things. The defending is that evaluative portion. It's that meaning making portion. And so to get down to really do the deep listening, I feel like most of my attention is on that, and trying to discover what they actually mean by what they say. Because from my standpoint, meanings happen internally, and then externally we're giving words, symbols, language, like we're going to discuss later, to those meanings, and trying to share them with other people. And so in session, someone will be giving me some of the things they're going through, their life situations, their life circumstances, and really to get down to the meaning, what they actually mean about them. I feel like that's a large portion of what we're doing, for sure.
So like 100% basically.
Well, I mean, at the beginning, yeah, there's a lot of that. But once we get to what their meaning is, and then, of course, then we can talk about practices and things like
Yeah,
that.
which we
But
will.
yeah, but for sure at the beginning, yeah, it's pretty much
It-
100%. Because if you don't know what they mean, how can you, you know what I mean? Like if you don't get their reality, then it's hard to come in and give them any sort of thing to go off of after
and
that.
help them out even, right? In that
Yeah.
sense. So what I'm trying to get to with this is that a lot of times we go through life and we unconsciously are giving meaning to things that are happening around us. And mostly it's unconscious that, something happens, something scares us. We create a protective wall, we create protective mechanism, we create a safety net or some sort where we start basically giving certain meaning to certain things in order to feel safe, in order to feel protected. And so you obviously are picking up on this as you're talking with your clients
Yeah.
because these are the what people refer to as the blind spots that we have that we are not aware of, obviously, because that meaning was created out of the state of fight or flight, really, in a sense. And not saying that we don't create meaning with being in love, we do. But I want to point out that the mind's job really is to protect the body and create all sorts of, logical and thoughtful processes that will help the body to go through life without being injured, obviously without dying. I think that's the number one priority.
Mm.
So in that sense, I feel like the meaning giving oftentimes is something that happens unconsciously, which is why oftentimes it creates the blind spots. And so do you obviously see this when you speak with your clients, it's something you look at.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're spot on there. When we've assigned meaning in a way that is because we're in fight or flight, and then we have these safety strategies that we come up with. What ends up happening is the safety strategies, they kind of harden those meanings into an identity and then into a personal reality. So to break it down, like the sensation down to like the language and then to the meaning that we kind of assign to it, there's like your body, what your body feels like if your chest is feeling tight before a call, and then the label that we could put onto that, like anxiety or something like that, or like danger. But then there's the story, there's a prediction for safety, right? So it's like, if I speak, I'll be judged, or I won't be okay if this happens. And so if we repeat that loop enough times, then it kind of crystallizes. Like I said, it hardens into the personality. Like, this is how I am. And then about the personal reality, like, this is how life is. And so that's the way I see it as far as, kind of what I'm looking for and how I sort of break it down with clients.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah, as you were talking, and what comes to me is often I've noticed, and I wonder if it's the same for you, when people, depending on where they are when they come to a coach, but very often, okay, tell me your story. It begins with the pain things, the fear things, because they're the biggest things. That's why they're here. There's a fear attached to whatever their need is, to why they're coming to somebody to help them and coach them, guide them. And I wrote down as you said it, it turns into their identity because they've, and so do you have sort of a protocol that to sort of bring them back? In other words, like they're going and they're on, they're not even taking a breath, and they're just, I've had this happen where they're not even taking a breath, and they're getting their whole life, and it's coming out, and all of the, like, because of this and this and this and this, because all of this happened, this is why I'm like this. And they're walking themselves into almost a panic attack and anxiety just because they're telling the story. Like, do you have a subtle, like, sort of breaking through that, or just listening and knowing when to be like, okay, wait, pause, let's talk about this? Is it something you find?
Well, I found that when people get stuck in their stories, like we all get stuck in things, and
Yeah.
that's what coaching is about, really, is to get people unstuck and get them moving again, really. And
Mm-hmm.
so, or what's one of the things that coaching is for. And so, when people are getting stuck in the stories, and if they're already in a coaching session like with me, then I'll invite them back to the breath invite them back to that witnessing awareness, into feeling their feet on the floor, or sometimes something as simple as that will kind of able to down regulate their nervous system enough that they can sort of sit with, and then maybe we can get into from going from identity to experience, instead of like I am a trait, I'm experiencing these sensations and these images, and I'm hearing these words and things like that. And you can repeat that and sort of help deprogram some of that stuff that's taking place, because in that stream of just words that they're putting out, it's funny how they're coming up with a stream of experiences that they're telling you about, and they're labeling it as, this is my life, this is me as a identity, this is what's happened to me, and this, and now because of this, it means that this and this, like they're already going ahead and saying that they're already defending what they're saying, and they're defining it, and they're saying, well, now it means this instead of meaning that, and it's continuously puts people into smaller and smaller energetics, you could say, right? And so what ends up happening, right, is, from what I found, is that awareness expansion is sort of the key to opening all that up.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Right, because it's to them that the house really is on fire, and it's like reminding them, okay, look around. We're sitting here. You're not on fire. You're okay. Because that it's when they're in such a belief, then they're arguing for those limitations and defending them, and which is just, it's just further and further, and it's just
It's
love
a
that.
spiral. Like I think we mentioned last time, or at least I've mentioned it before, that there's spiraling down, and then you can do an upward spiral too. So
Right.
we're trying to move people from down into up, or whatever you want to say. Raise that frequency.
Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful. And that's the next thing I want to go to is the frequency. And before we do that, I wanted to also throw in there a little bit of have you guys heard of Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning book? Yeah, so Viktor Frankl was for those of you who have not, so Viktor Frankl was in the Holocaust, basically a survivor, and he was in I think Auschwitz or whichever camp he was locked up in, and his whole family was basically murdered. He was a psychologist by trade, and got to this place and survived it only because he knew how powerful meaning was, giving everything or anything meaning. So, through they gave them like they said that they're gonna give them soup, and it was a dirty water with a fish bone in it, literally, just literally that. It's just it was terrible. And so he, knowing what he's doing, decided, okay, he's going to put in his mind, every time I take a bite of this or just take this, I visualize and feel this soup that's nourishing my body. Doesn't matter what I'm eating, but it's there. I'm taking it in, and he was in that space. And then he said, things like, they can take my body, but they cannot take my mind. And so, being very strong throughout the whole thing. And he was one of the only survivors. He was one of the survivors, and mainly, I would say probably only because of his ability to shift perspective about his reality. When I read it first time, I was so taken by it, because here we are complaining about these mundane things, and we have these grandiose stories about what happened to me in childhood, and here he is surviving in a Holocaust, in a concentration camp, and matter of life and death, literally, and it's just in every way, And I know Peter talks about, if it's not a life-threatening,
Not life-threatening.
it's ego-threatening.
Threatening.
Exactly. Yeah. So with that, and I wanted to just make sure that people understand that the meaning that they are putting behind anything that they say that they do is what's going to drive their life. It's what's going to create their reality, like you said, the reality, create that personal reality. So thank you for those insights. Really, really appreciate that. So moving on to the frequency, as you mentioned before.
So words are frequency. They create vibration. Obviously, we speak and we literally create a sound. And even thoughts themselves. If you go into the brain, there is a firing of the thoughts as they are being received and mingled and processed. And so it's all about this firing vibration or frequency, right? So there we talk about the brain frequency. We have the, beta frequency, we have the alpha frequency, theta frequency, and then we have delta and gamma, etc. Those are all important or interesting to know about because it, can tell you like which state of mind you're in. But basic idea, beta frequencies, like when we talk, when we can comprehend. Next one down is the alpha, which is where if you start breathing slower, you slow down and you bring awareness to your breath. You go into alpha brainwave frequency if you do it multiple times. If you do it longer and you slow down the breath even more, you're shifting to theta frequency, which is where the theta frequency is where your brain is the most suggestible. And so I wanted to get into this piece because when the mind is most suggestible, we are being affected by everything around us. And here is where the unconscious again becomes subconscious. And sometimes thoughts or things that people say, or you hear that commercial, or you watch that movie, or whatever it is that goes into the subconscious without you even noticing. And so one of the things I wanted to bring up here for you is that the practices that you do with awareness, causality or causation, I think you said awareness, and then you said semantics awareness, I think. And then
Sure.
the other two that were also, and then I want to see like what's the difference between those and then how they actually help you assist find something that may help the client in resolving or just becoming aware again, not being in subconscious and or unconsciously unaware of what's happening in their brain, what's happening in their mind, but like what tools do you use to bring people in this state of being into the awareness?
Okay, yeah, great. Thanks for that question. Yeah. I mean, I loved a lot of parts about that question, and one of the things that jumped out at me was when you said receiving, when your brain receives the thoughts, and I was like, oh yeah, all right, you got it now. So what we're talking about, so what I'm talking about as far as the four different types of awareness, right? So there's that direct experience that we get through witnessing awareness, and there's the systematic understanding, so cause and effect through causality awareness, and then the meaning and values, right? That comes through semantic awareness. I call it semantic, but you can call it full-mindedness or mindfulness, but that's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
loaded word, right? Awareness. And then there's the potential, like recognizing potential and different possibilities and options. That comes from
Mm-hmm.
open awareness, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, what I'm doing in any session is actually taking people through perceptional shifts in asking them through, because like there's a map of these different awarenesses and kind of where they sort of live in relationship to another. We traverse the furthest distance that a client can go with an example like, what does it feel like in your body to talk about this, and then what does that mean? That would be the furthest that you can go. Or on the flip side, if you're going from causal, like what are the patterns in your life that have shown this before? And then you go to open awareness and say, okay, now what other possibilities exists right now in this moment for you? And those are the sort of just the basic questions that you can kind of ask to get people to move around and into those different areas, right? And
Yeah.
so mastering the structures and the practices, you create the conditions for natural, effortless action, which is what the Taoist philosophy calls a Wu Wei.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing is we're developing this a perceptional scaffolding around. And so within that, you can, or what I've come to be able to do is sort of map out and discover the sort of shape of someone's perception. And then this perceptional shape you can expand it in different areas by going through and boosting up these different types of awarenesses that there might be underutilizing for whatever reason. Now, part of that goes into why are they not utilizing some of these different types of awarenesses. And we all have our own life circumstances that we're going through. And in those circumstances, it will serve us to use one over the other, or this is the one that we're more accustomed to. Or there could be like genetic factors at play, like we're just more predisposed to using one of these, or this is how we've done it through our whole lives, and that's how we're comfortable with it. And so these are the ones that we're like using. But really, that wisdom comes from being able to naturally move between all of these different perspective positions and utilizing all four different types of awareness to all situations all the time. So it's not an easy task. That's sort of how we look at it, from this framework.
Mm-hmm. I love that you use the scaffolding. That just clicks, and it's such a beautiful way to look at it, because scaffolding can be changed. And I think offering up something and practices and protocols that are changeable and movable, it's not as frightening as like, this is the way you do it. You have to do it this way, and you have to do it right, or else. So that it leaves a lot of room for them to sort of grow as they're involved in it. And it sounds very like open to me. And yeah. Is there anything that is you find to be the most common or frequent thing, whether it be a fear or something you're bringing somebody back from? Like, do you see certain things that are, more that you see a lot?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's like a foundational informational asymmetry, we'll call it, as it occurs to the identity. And that is that it's not something, it's not enough, it's not safe, but the foundational one would be like kind of not enough. Like I feel like everybody has felt like that before. And what happens is it drives perfectionism, people pleasing, even overachievement, shame, self rejection, those types of things can all kind of come out of this identity, this label that, our subconscious might be, putting on ourselves based off of the things that we've heard and made meaning out of. So that's where it comes back to making meaning out of those things, right? It comes down to, that language of we're speaking English. Thank you for being able to speak English, because that's the only one that I'm any good at. And so that's the language that we're using. But then, when we apply meaning to the things that we've heard, then we start to make that mean something about ourselves, and then make that mean something about life in general. And now we've constructed our own, prison of limitations and constraints that dictate our everyday actions. And so what I do in my practice is I point people to, this map made of these different sort of awarenesses. And then, there's a compass aspect to it, or how we align our, short-term daily actions to the deeper purpose and values that we also have.
Yeah, it's like finding, realizing, okay, this is the story, the identity, this is the story I'm telling, and then identifying what's sourcing the story. And when you find that whatever is sourcing it, then that's the ticket, because that's the why. And then it's when we can realize, what's ego, what's just of the mind and the ego. And I heard this cool, one of my teachers, she says it like this: ego is like a mirror, and if you're too close, you only see you. But if you stand back, you see more, and you see the world, and you see everything. But if you get too close to it, then you're, but which I thought was cool. But yeah, I love the way that you format things, because you're leaving the opening, and it sounds like you're leading people to build the scaffolding that they are going to stand on, to keep leveling up or whatever changes they have to make, whatever they're doing. But it's like I have this vision of you're there with the material, right? But they're taking it from your hands and then placing it and building it as they go. But you're there with a direction, which I believe is what a good coach, teacher, right? It's when we're just with people, not like, okay, do that, or of course not doing it for them, but you're not even like putting it in place, like they do it through your guidance.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm helping people come to realizations within themselves,
Yep.
helping them get out of their own way. It's nothing
Yeah.
I'm not
Exactly.
pushing anybody or forcing anybody or even suggesting that they do really anything. It's more about building that awareness. It's more about zooming out from away from the mirror and seeing things a little bit more clearly and holistically. And then
Yeah.
in that way, we can dissolve some of the things that we've made mean about ourselves, and then go on to really live our life's purpose and create the lives that we're looking to create.
Beautiful. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's one of the things that I'm gonna again just reiterate here, because Tammy and I have been talking about this for the last several podcasts, is that the mind really is the guard of the being that we have here in this physical manifestation. And so in that sense, the mind is the one that needs to be trained. The untrained mind is basically going to just like do what it wants, kind of thing. And so then unconsciously living the life is also a possibility, but it is very unfulfilling. And so being able to be aware of what we do is super, super important. All right, so the next thing that I noticed also that you mentioned map. You use the word map. That I have a map to give to people to help them out, in their way of dealing with their situations. So one of the things that I was also immersed into regarding the system that I've learned with energy most recently by Master Mark Rasmus, and he talks about as I was saying before, the mental body, the astral body, and then the physical body. And so these three bodies are like the main bodies of our system. And then they use this, I say my master, and then his most senior student at this point, who has taken over a lot of his energy work and teaches on his behalf, basically. But he uses the word map as in mental astrophysical, the map.
Oh, cool.
I
Oh,
know.
yeah.
It's like the abbreviation,
I love acronyms and
right?
alliteration. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
And so what I added to that was the E in front of that, because the next body or the next part of our body's structure is what we move into, or body's layer, is the etheric body. And so the ether is like the quantum field, like the potentiality of everything.
Yeah.
And so in my world, so they use the map, I use the EMAP. And not that they don't use all the same stuff I do, but it's just like, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna use EMAP.
Right.
So like
Awesome.
the
Yeah.
energetic map kind of thing, but
Yeah.
etheric in a sense. So there's these layers of the body. And so why am I talking about this? Because understanding your physical vehicle, whether that's the physical body, whether that's your emotions and feelings, your astral body, whether that's your mental body, your thoughts, how they are formed in your brain, how they enter, and your meaning that you give into to life, and unconscious or unconscious patterns that you're creating, the habits that you're doing, the beliefs that you have. All those things are so important in order to again understand like who you are and why you're here, and what is the best way to live your most fulfilled life. And again, I love that what Peter points out also is that make that experience exploratory. So versus, he points out a difference between seeking and exploring. And so this is something that I wanted to just pose a question for you personally, regardless of your clients. If you want to talk about clients as well, you can. But where have you noticed that shift within yourself from seeking to exploring? And is there something specifically that has caused that? So is there some like a point or just maybe even practices or some ways that you remind yourself that you are in the exploratory state versus I'm seeking now?
Honestly, exploration. I mean, it's in the name of
Yeah.
my company, and I am all about it. And so yeah, I'll gladly talk about this and
Excellent.
riff on this anytime. So yeah, for me, I feel like the energy of exploration implies uncertainty, and so there's the sense that as we live in this ever expanding present, and past and future are constructs of the mind. I mean, that's even Einstein that said this. They're modes in which we think, not realities in which we live. I mean, or something like that. I butchered that quote. But if we come from an energy of exploration, to me, that means that we don't know what's going to happen and we're curious to find out. And so, in all of my interactions, I try to bring this curiosity and this care into anything that I'm endeavor to do. And I think tapping into that curiosity is really how we become more aligned with the true nature of everything that exists. Because there's a postulate of being that I ascribe to that states that the universe is dynamic, which I don't know if anybody's disagreeing with that. It's changing all the time, and that it's holistic. Everything is connected. Quantum physics tells us that there's quantum fields and there's entanglement and all that kind of stuff. We don't need to get into that right here, but that's the other part of it. And then number three is that it is curious. So if the universe is curious, what would it be curious about? Well, there's only one thing, and that's it, because it's the only thing. And so it's just curious about itself. And so it wants to know itself. And how does it do that? It does that through the different viewpoints, the different perceptional shapes that I talked about earlier, which we could call egos, and how they're interacting with each other and how they're learning from each other and how they're expressing their meaning to each other. So as I'm doing right now to you and your listeners, trying to use the crude symbols that I've acquired so far to express the meaning that I feel inside. It's the same way. And that's how the exploratory energy for me fills my life with immense amount of ease, flow, um, harmony, peace, vitality. It's kind of all there in this exploratory energy that you can tap into once you become open and available to it, because it's always there.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I use exploration, but I also say inquiry. That's how I was taught by my teachers, right? And it's that surrendering into that. The only way that we realize that we are consciousness, which is the answer to the question, who are you? Right? That
Yeah.
we're, we sit before our teachers to answer that question but the only way we know that is to sit with it through all of whatever might come. But it's that sitting in that. But when we build that foundational sense of safety, as you're stating, like through your work, okay, no, the house isn't on fire, you're safe, here we are, look where we are, we're grounded, we're here, look where your feet are, this is it. And then this inquiry, it's a feeling of, for me, I say like completely satisfied with where I am and eager for whatever comes in the inquiry. And if we're there, we sit with it and stay as the thoughts come and the ego tries to talk us out of it and say, no, run. Maybe the house isn't on fire now, but it's going to be on fire soon. So you better run. Don't sit still. And when we do that, that's when we find this, because everybody, people want this, and they come and they ask, well, what do you mean? And you say surrender, and they go into a spiral. But that's where it is. That's where it is. And that's when we know we are all that. And then the external needs, they fall away. And we realize, okay, I don't have that. And the more that you live through the exploration, the inquiry, and let everything come in with each time that you realize that you lived through it and you're safe and nothing bad happened. And when you sit with it, it dissolves and goes away. When you run from it, it chases you and gets bigger, and then you get tired and you can't run and it catches you. And so you're the one that gets caught. You're not going to, you never catch happiness or joy. You get caught by whatever you're running from. And yeah, I love that you're talking about that. I mean, that's where all the answers are. And it's an exploration. It's not a, life isn't a scavenger hunt where we're going to get more points when we run really fast. And the more we can collect things and have them, here I win a prize. It's no, it's slow, and just letting everything be and realize you can sit still and everything can happen while you're sitting still. It's a beautiful process when people are willing to sit with it. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Very sweet. So yeah, I feel like again, back to the meaning that we assign to things, and in our conscious understanding, there's a huge difference between assigning meaning in a state of protecting yourself from something, so from state of fear in some sense, and or from place of being inspired by something, from place of love. So we have obviously free will to assign meaning whichever way see fits in our life in the moment. And we are going to go through lessons that we're going to go through. I don't want to say we're supposed to go to, because we are, again, free will, so we're choosing.
Yeah.
But again, I want to point out, where are you choosing from? So can you be aware, what is really your vantage point? Where are you looking from? So again, the mental body, I feel like, serves us because we need to process our daily, things through the life, and we are obviously in the need of some sort of uh, personality to have here. Again, but I just want to make sure that we are choosing that personality every day, that we're not letting some sort of autopilot pick and choose for us, and then resent that whoever picked, somebody else must have picked that for me. Resent that, whether that was the parents, whether that was the teachers, that it's their fault, or etc. It's you're choosing. You're the one that's choosing all of this. So is there anything that you would like to tell us about that you do in your either again with your clients or in your own practice to keep yourself either in the mode of awareness more often than not, in some sort of habits that you have perhaps newly developed that have now been serving you as a I don't want to say brand new, but new-ish coach, and as you're implementing this to your life? So is there something that whether with your mindfulness or whether actual practice physically?
Yeah, I think I mentioned last time my biggest practices are about
Walking.
Walking and reconnecting with nature.
Yeah.
Every time we breathe, it's like 50,000 microbes are coming in as well. And
Mm.
just being able to be out in nature and, seeing live the exchange of resources that it's able to, like if you just look at a tree, it's there, but it's getting the water, it's getting the nutrients, it's getting the sunlight, it's getting, it's there, and it is. So going out into the stillness of nature and being with that, I mean, I feel like that's a good habit that I've gotten myself into, more recently now. And yeah, that's definitely helped with my witnessing awareness, being able to witness more. And then in that, as that grows, I've been able to more accurately tell when I'm in another perceptional, or I'm using a different type of awareness, if I'm defining something, or if I'm making it mean something, or if I'm just open to the possibilities. Like to know where I am on the map will help me get back to where I want to be in the map. It's not the territory, but it's the map.
The map again. You know the map.
Yeah. I do love what you were saying about, choosing our, personality, or choosing the way that we show up,
Yeah.
basically. And I feel like it really comes down to, that first step is responsibility. And it's about, being responsible for your life. It's not being a victim. of the circumstances that are happening to you. I'm not condoning there's terrible circumstances out there. I'm not condoning any of that. But what I'm saying is that your life is the way it is now based off of actions or inactions that you chose to take or not take, so to speak. And so, being in full responsibility means that, owning up to all the things that you've done. And if that means that you have to go clean up some stuff with some people that you've harmed in some way, then that's what I would invite your audience into.
Yeah, I love that. I love the responsibility. That again, I think that's one of the most, that's right up there, top priority that we can do and be a mirror of for people is the responsibility, because it takes so much weight off of ourselves and others. It just clears so much space, and it clears the path for the future too. It clears the path for anything that has happened. But then walking forward, when you take responsibility, you're telling the truth. And the truth sets us free, and it clears the path. And there, you don't have to remember anything if you're telling the truth. You don't have to remember, oh well, did I wear a mask in that relationship? How did I show up? Oh no, like, oh, I was, like,
Yeah.
you don't have to do any of that anymore. And now, so people say, what do you mean free? What does that mean? Well, I'm always, when people can get that, that's the ticket. Like, that's the easy way out, out into the world and out of the constraints that we have, because it's exhausting. And I think that many people don't realize how much pressure that they have on them because of not taking responsibility, because you don't realize that you're doing it, to most, you're not consciously aware of where you're wearing masks or where you're not showing up authentically or anything. So that's beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'm curious also, Matthew Sean, how much do you touch on beliefs with your clients typically?
We get into beliefs sort of after the foundational work sort of comes in. I mean, a lot of times they'll start with their beliefs, and they won't say it like this, but they'll say, "Oh, I'm having money issues. Like there's not enough zeros in my bank account or something like that, right?" And then so we get into diving into what that means, about them and why they would say that, right? And where in their life those patterns have shown up before and how it makes them feel. And so all these questions, right? And what else could it mean? We discover those beliefs along the way. And then we dissolve those and say, okay, well, this is your own making. This is of your own. This is your own co-creation. This is a manifestation of your mind that your mind was making. Your mental body was making this to keep you safe, to keep you to survive up until now. But the good news is you have survived up until now. So now you don't need that anymore. You can use it to inform you, learn from it, but you don't have to be defined by it anymore. You could say, okay, well, it is the way it is. I'll take responsibility for it now, but what am I preparing for? What is the next step in the journey? And that's what we're about here at Expansive Explorations.
Yeah, great, great. Yeah, so one of the reasons I've asked is because beliefs can be very tricky around, especially like when people have such strong and firm beliefs about life and the way it should be. And especially around obviously, either politics or religion, especially. Those are, I think, the two things that you don't talk about, kind of thing. So, and those are really the reasons that you don't talk about them, is so you never discover what's behind there. So the mind can stay safely, aware of like what it is, just a little boxed in meaning kind of thing. But I feel like obviously the most authenticity lies in that space where we are hiding again and where we are associating ourselves with something because we've done it for so long and haven't questioned it. And or perhaps we have questioned it and we associate ourselves with it so strongly that there is now right or wrong. And I feel like those are really hard concepts to get people through. And especially like, when I feel it on my own, it's like when somebody is saying something that I don't align with, and it's like, okay, now the alarms go off. Oh, are they trying to manipulate you? Are they trying to do this? Are they judging you? What's going on? What's going on? Are they tricking you? And so mine starts to like try to create all these protective mechanisms. And so I love that both of you have spoken to responsibility as well. And so noticing where these patterns are at some point, obviously, whether it's through the work with the therapist or whatever, and or you're just talking with your friend and something happens, something they say, and then all of a sudden you just remember, oh my gosh, I'm doing that too. And so when awareness comes in, can we maybe talk a little bit to the responsibility and for both of you actually, Tammy as well, because you're clients as well, and your clients, the Matthew Show as well. So responsibility and kind of like what is the gift of responsibility? I think we've already alluded to that, but maybe something else comes to mind at this point.
Yeah, the gift of responsibility, I feel like, comes down to restoring your own agency. And if you aren't responsible, then what you're saying is that you're at the effect of life, at the effect of others, at the effect of circumstances that are sort of happening in your life. And, from there, you don't respond, you don't have responsibility, you have reactions, and you're reacting to things. And what we want to move into is not being reactive, but being creative. Move that C into the front. Okay. And be creative with it. Get curious and get creative. But we can really only do that once we have taken that full responsibility. Because otherwise, oh, it's somebody else's fault. And a lot of times what people will do is they'll gladly take responsibility for all the great things in their life. But then there's, some things that, that they might deem as to be, unsightly. And that's where the masks come in and the inauthenticity. And that's where they don't want to take responsibility for that. But it's an all or nothing type of proposition. And once full responsibility can be held, then now you're on the starting blocks. Now you can really get going to figure out your purpose and what type of life you want to create, because now we're in that creative energy. We're not reacting anymore. So I'd say that would be the gift.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, lovely insights.
Yes. So for me, the gift is truth, and it's an open door, and then the freedom to be unapologetically authentic. And truth is love. Love is truth. What is real is love and truth. It doesn't ever change. So that means that you're grounded and you're able to be unapologetically authentic, because from a state of love, all that comes from you comes from highest attention. So there's nothing to clean up. If it makes a mess, it's someone else's mess. Because if you're in truth and you're in love, there's nothing wrong. There's no offense intended. It's not unapologetic, like I'm going to go out into the world and it's not entitlement. It's unapologetically authentic from the basis of love and truth. And if you're in truth, you're not attached to outcomes, which enables you to be unapologetic, because you can be authentic if you're not attached. If I'm attached to outcomes, I'm not going to be authentic, because I'm going to have to make up stories and put my masks on and go to the trouble to make sure who I'm with and what mask I need to wear and what I need to say and what I need to do so that I can, and then now I'm in that loop. But if you're in truth, you don't have to do any of that. It's pure. To me, that's what freedom is. You can just be. You can just be consciousness, and you don't have to worry about anything. And also, if you're coming from that state of love, if someone else in your path has an offense and they still are upset or they're combative or they're, defensive, you're going to have the compassion within you to not be reactive to their reaction to you being truth and unapologetic. So everything is it's all going to be okay, because you're going to be an example of that to them. Not to say that, some people are still going to storm off, and maybe even conflict, and maybe, but you're not attached to it. So that's a tornado that's happening over there, and you're not in it. If you're in truth, you're not in anybody else's tornado. So that's my very long answer. So the question is, the gift is, it's truth. It's truth.
It's so, thank you for that insight, Tammy. Thank you. This is again a very important piece to not stick your nose to places where it doesn't belong, kind of thing, and being responsible for the self and the self only. And obviously, if people are asking for help, then obviously, being the good Samaritan or whatever human being that you choose to help or not. That's up to you, always. And if you ever acting from obligation that you're helping someone, you might want to check into that and ask yourself why you're doing that exactly. So, a few of those places to notice whether you are reacting or whether you are being in the state of creativity and you are acting because you're inspired, is for us to basically notice what serves the situation, what serves the purpose in our life, what serves the purpose in the life of someone else that we're interacting with. So I would love to keep going with this, because reactivity and creativity is something that we spoke about in the book club yesterday, but I have a feeling that we'd go for another hour.
Yeah, it's a big topic. Yeah,
It is a big topic. Yes. Thank you again. So thank you for being here, and always fun chatting with you both guys. And I really, really appreciate Matthew, Sean making time, and Tammy as well, making time to come here and talk to us and give us some sweet little insights into your world and your psyche, and how we can be a little bit more on the top of our game from perspective of being aware, being conscious of what we're doing in this world versus acting from place of unconscious behaviors that have been preset before to us, for us somehow. So really, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marek. And yeah, I mean, I also want to just reiterate that I have the same offer out to your listeners this time. They can, since we're talking about the mental body, there's a mental audit that I'm offering, some journaling prompts over. You can find those at Matthew Sean Alexander /audit, and you can dive into it yourself and sort of see what might be those, what I call loops, or what Mark just referred to as those patterns of behavior that are just having you on that autopilot, and how we can break out of that and live more consciously.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that you do that. I want to just add, like, I feel like the way that you have that set up, you're creating self-trust for people, right? When to participate and do this and sit and listen, right? If we learn to be able to sit with ourselves and listen to this, right? And get familiar with that, with the patterns, with the loops, and have some guidance, we begin to trust ourselves. And the more that we trust ourselves, then the less afraid that we are. And I think my opinion is that so much of everything is rooted in the fear that something's wrong in here. And so we need to do something before anything comes out. And so we're not even sometimes giving a chance to say something, which goes into the, like we've spoken about vulnerability and all of that. I mean, we could go on for 15 hours just on that. But I just feel when I listen to you speak, I'm filled with a feeling of people being able to access self-trust. And there's nothing more valuable than that, because if we can trust ourselves, then we don't have to go out into the world and hope that we can find somebody that we can trust enough to count on them and their opinions to attach ourselves to, so that then we can go out in the world and be who we're supposed to be, because then somebody else is saying it's okay. Like, we don't have to do any of that if we have self-trust. Yeah.
Just remember that the trust is the one that we're trusting is always ourselves, because we're always, it's the different perspectives. And so that's what I like to come back to, as far as like the trust is, it's that unitive force, what we call love, and just it's that unity that we can, you know, kind of lean into. I think it's a big thing. I think it's important thing for all of us to be doing.
Yeah, it's in-sourced, not outsourced.
Yes, we're insourcing some of this stuff, and I think that's
I love that. Trust is definitely one of those things that you can't, like Tammy said, you can't source it from out there somewhere. It comes from within, and it's based on obviously your experiences and kind of like how you begin to see yourself again. What meaning do you give to life as you go through your days? And so you're building the trust to yourself or with yourself as you progress through understanding who you are, understanding the life around you, people around you, what feels safe, what doesn't feel safe, etc. But that trust is a big thing for sure. Beautiful job, you guys. Thank you so much again for being here, for coming by today. Great to see you, and until next time.
And if you have enjoyed today's episode, please give us a like, subscribe, hit that bell button, and leave us a comment if there is anything specific you would like to hear in the next podcast sessions, as Tammy and I will delve deeper into the physical body and its practices and its functions, and how the nutrition plays a role in our life, what kind of physical routines are good for particular body styles, and understanding the causation chain of the mental body, the astral body, and physical body, how they all play together, and how the thought becomes the emotion, emotion becomes the action, action becomes a reality in your life. So stay tuned, and we're looking forward to seeing you next time. Until then, take good care of you and stay awake and aware, most of all.